Hello, everybody. I made sure to click recording this time. I am so upset. I don't remember though, because I feel like I hit record and then potentially my cloud storage was full. I'm sorry. But as one of our wonderful clients reminded me, I did take notes for that call. They're a mess, so I'm working on making it an actual typed out format, but I'm going to post it to the page once I have a chance to catch up from being sick over the last couple days. I'll make that into something legible and then you guys can have that instead. But we are recording this one, thank God. So let's get into it. I don't know if you can hear Sammy just tearing his little toy right next to me. Can you go do that anywhere else, bud? Anywhere else. This is my little sick couch corner over here. So today's this little 8-pound chihuahua, I swear to God. He almost went down for the count. So today's topic is I'm going to try to deliver as much as advice as I can on the matter. I can't relate to this topic like I can to a lot of the topics that I usually talk about. I can just try to support in the best way that I know, offer some kind of insight and comfort. And a lot of this, as I mentioned, is going to rely on interaction because I might not know the subtle nuances of things to try and advise you through because I haven't personally experienced that same thing. So if you're comfortable, you can set it to anonymous on here. You can send it to me in a text and just remind me that, you sent me a text so I look. But if you can share today, not everything I'm going to go over might pertain exactly to you, but I do want to mention however it does. Okay. So let's start out with overall why this is just unsexy. Okay. And we're going to kick off with trying to conceive. So those of you in here who have been in this situation before, if you're comfortable, share your thoughts in the chat with how sex while trying to conceive has been. If you're willing to share in the chat. I know from talking to various clients over the years, and I mean, just basically, you can kind of get why it would become, not sexy. It's biological, it's timed, it's emotional, it's hopeful, it's heart wrenching, it's traumatic at times, and it's absolutely none of the things that you want sex to be. And you have the added bonus of getting pregnant to add to the whole mix, and it makes things painfully awkward. The other side of it is that when it's intimacy that's based not on like want, it's not just because you're horny, it's because like, oh, it's ovulation time, let's go to it. It's like, oh my God, it's not sexy at all, but it makes it awkward because you're doing it just because you have to. So if not everybody's in the mood like you'd think that you would be, whether it's either partner, it kind of magnifies that. And if you have any underlying insecurities, if somebody seems like they don't want to have sex with you, like that, add that to the pressure of the situation already. It's just a lot of mental organization that's having to go on for something that's supposed to be fun and pleasurable and intuitive. So it could really kind of then make you question what's our dynamic like? What's going on here? What are we doing here? When there really isn't a problem there. It's just two people trying to navigate a very tricky situation that's full of nuance. So let me see what he said. I wasn't trying, but I did, and it was traumatic still with how it happened. Absolutely. Trying to conceive and the process of conception in an unhealthy dynamic, it takes something like sex and like conception that's supposed to be a pleasant experience, and it turns it into the opposite. Of course it's going to carry, We're taking a break right now, but when we are trying to conceive, especially at first, it became stressful. It'd be like, I know we both worked for 10 hours and are exhausted, but I'm ovulating, so we have to do it now. It makes it feel like breeding, and it takes that like everybody thinks that it's gonna be like, oh, like, oh, ding ding, can't wait to get home, rip each other's clothes off. No, it's like, what the hell do we eat tonight? Did you take anything out of the freezer? Shit, neither did I. All right, I guess we're gonna have to order again. Oh yeah, and we gotta have sex tonight too, because aren't you ovulating? That's what sex becomes. Why aren't people jumping each other's bones, I was so worried my husband felt like I didn't even really want him as much as I just wanted to get pregnant. And you know what? Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes that's the case, and that kind of also takes a hit at the sex, because you don't want it to be like some utilitarian thing, you know? It also magnifies, like, if you're not thoroughly enjoying it and in the moment, it magnifies everything. It magnifies if you have an ache or a pain, or you don't feel comfortable with a certain angle, or the way your body's laying a certain way, or if you're just trying to get it in that day because it's the day, and it's the middle of the day, you don't like day sex, it just kind of takes all of the parts that we're supposed to be able to customize and enjoy about the experience kind of out of the picture, while also sprinkling on top the pressure of a big life change, and medical trauma and all of that. But why is it like the Sahara up in here? I don't know. Nobody's in the mood for that, you know? Nobody's getting turned on by that spiel. Like, can't wait till it hits, 6 o'clock. I get to go home to sign up for that, you know? And I think it's honestly a conversation that people are afraid to have, because of video one, with the communication and the ego facet of it, where we don't want to hurt the people we're with. We don't necessarily know how to communicate these real things, So it gets really fuzzy. And what do you do when neither of you feel like enough for your partner? Because we do have, a lot of reason why people hate low sex drive. It's not only the feeling of not giving your partner that facet of your relationship, but it's also, I feel, that it takes a hit at your own self-confidence. You don't feel vivacious, you miss that part of you, that lively facet of you, so when you feel like sex is just something you've got to do, and you don't have necessarily a big drive for it, it makes you feel like you're not enough a lot of times. And your partner, if they feel that, then they feel not enough. And it just, again, I'm not going to rehash video one, but communicating is really, really important here, because what do you do when you both don't feel like you're enough and you're trying to do something where you want to be in your best mental shape in order to make this happen, and yet you're trying to suppress all of these nuanced emotions that are coming up? It becomes a cluster mess. So I'm trying to be better about my words. So anyway, how about after loss? Anybody here experience how to begin having a sex life again after loss? This could be pregnancy loss, infant loss, family loss, just loved one loss. After loss, if you are comfortable sharing, tell us a little bit about your experience just trying to have a sex life again. Mo has entered the chat. So there's so much nuance when it comes to sex and loss. I remember watching The Walking Dead, and one time being like, who the hell gets horny in a time like this? Like, because they're like all sleeping and someone got pregnant. And then I'm like, wait a second, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And damn it, why shouldn't it? If it can, and the two people are in that mindset to find joy and connection in that kind of a mess, but that's not where your brain goes right away, right? It feels inappropriate for a moment. Like it's some kind of vigil you have to hold that has nothing to do with the loss you've experienced. It just feels inappropriate, if it feels anything at all, It's for real. When confronted with death, you want to produce life. I worked at a mortuary. You've seen some shit. Yeah. So absolutely. People respond. And that's the other thing. As I've gotten older, I've, growing up, I remember being so reactive because the internet and social media and things like that were finally becoming a thing where people could even share what their thoughts are with anyone besides the four people in the room, So it was crazy because people were so quick to, at least I was so quick to assume how someone should react in a situation, and just flexing your internet voice in the early 2000s, I feel like was sometimes even more cutthroat than it is today, and I feel like we don't know how anyone would respond in certain situations. To have a how you should or shouldn't respond when you're going through an intensely emotional situation that truly nobody else could understand unless they were you in that same situation, because we never experience each other's stuff. So, like, how could you know exactly how someone would react? But it can cause a lot of complications because when you have two people dealing with loss and trying to now do something that's supposed to be joyful and pleasurable, how do you reconcile all of that? So, you guys tell me if you're comfortable sharing. Have you been in that situation where you've had to, you're not ready? What did I write here? It's so nuanced. There's no I wrote, I'm just gonna read my notes here so I don't go off track. What if you feel inappropriate being horny again? What if you feel upset that your partner is wanting that again? What if you feel like it never mattered, the loss you went through? Or you don't want to replace that loss, or you do want to replace that loss. You don't even want to think about and process the loss you've experienced. And what if your partner's not on the same page with that? It's so nuanced that, in my opinion, there is no way, like I was saying, to advise on this. So I'm just going to try and advise the best of my ability, but no one, chances are, I'm not there yet. Disregard me. My brain is still fuzzy. So let's see what's in this chat here. Okay. It's strange. It's like you have so many different feelings. You almost want it more because it's like normalcy. And for me in the past, I dealt with stuff with substances. So sex was almost just a part of that. But then there's this other side, which is never, ever wanting to be touched. Absolutely. And feeling weird because your mind is on another person that you don't want to think about during sex. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That inappropriateness, right? You just feel inappropriate, even if it's what you want. Here was the real mind F, having sex after spousal loss. That was wild. I can't even imagine. I'm so sorry that you went through that. I'm so sorry anybody in here who's experienced loss has experienced loss. It's I could totally see that though. Because you're clawing for something that makes you feel present and grounded and connected to somebody. And then the weight of the way everything is different now kind of settles in at a time where you don't want it to be settling in. That makes a lot of sense. It really adds another layer to things. And the hope is that, you can communicate that with your partner. Like I wrote, loss is so nuanced. There's no way oh, God damn, I'm going to read that paragraph 3 times. Okay. So what I can say is you deserve to feel good again. And when it feels right, it will be. If there are things to process first in order for them to be right, you shouldn't have to do that alone, So chances are you aren't required to do that alone, but a lot of people really hold that in. So you don't seem negative or needy or not moving on, harping on things. The fear that that's how we're being perceived, when really our energy should be going towards our own healing, not other people's perception of our healing. You're human and humans hurt at different speeds and different paces. The person you are, the parent that you're capable of being, is not dictated by some celestial timeline of how you should grieve. That happens at all different paces. So then lastly, before we get into some solutions and some conversation around solving these in your specific ways, right? We're going to talk about betrayal, the big daddy, this is hard because betrayal it means that either you or your partner has participated in that pain or that lack of trust or that loss even, and that is, to be honest, I think it's harder to stay in those situations. I don't ever judge anyone for staying or going. I don't believe in absolutes. I think that no one knows what it's like to live in someone else's shoes. So I don't judge as if there's a right or a wrong, but I will say that it seems, in my opinion, harder to stay. It is so much harder to heal while still just hurting, seeing that person and just all it's just so it's scary, right? So if anyone has been in this situation and feel is comfortable sharing, you can do so anonymously if you do it in the chat. Either if you were the one that betrayed or the one that got betrayed. It's hard to stay and to even look at that person sometimes, let alone to think about having sex with them again. So what did I say here? Because all you can do is make your demands known, what you need to feel safe in order to stay. All you can do is make the effort that you need to see known and hold them accountable to it. Make the patience you'll need for your healing known and know that you're not going to be perfect at it. It's going to be good and bad day to day. And then also you need to not forever be hard on them. They can't always be the scumbag because you agreed to rebuild. So there needs to either be a this can be rebuilt or this can't be rebuilt point that needs to be reached, because at the end, what you can't ever change the past. So why continue the torture for either person, right? It doesn't mean a full dismissal. Like if you're staying, you need to pretend that everything's good. Absolutely not. Again, the patience that's required and should be, there should be grace given for that patience that's needed. It's not going to be perfect. But the thing is, letting time happen to get the history of trust, you'll never know if you're going to be screwed over or not. That's the thing. You didn't see it coming the first time. It doesn't matter if you surveil everything you can. Chances are maybe you wouldn't see it coming the second time. Anybody you meet has a chance to screw you over. People, I was saying this I was talking to a client today about it. It sounds really like pessimistic, but I don't think it is. I think it's realistic in that saying you never know. Anybody, one of you here could screw up at some point. I don't know. I don't know. In our right minds right now, we're saying no, but there's some crazy shit that happens, right? So my point is that if you don't run away from the fear of being hurt, because nobody is impervious to being hurt, ever. If instead you say, I can only go based on the evidence that I have at that time, and I can only validate my feelings, I can only validate the hurt I feel about being betrayed, I can only look at that and go based off of that, because there is absolutely no way for me to know if I am wasting my time to get hurt again. There is no way for me to know that, like there was no way for me to know before. And that is really the risk. And it's totally okay if for your mental health and emotional health, that means it can't keep going. That's the impasse that I'm talking about, where everything is valid, but it has to be, and that's why it's so hard to stay, in my opinion, is because you never do know. None of us know if we're going to get hurt. So I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like more comforted by saying I'm making an active decision to know that the possibility exists, but it's more of a safer bet to go on what's in front of me and know that I can change my mind at any point, than it is to just continue thinking, I hope they don't hurt me. I hope they don't hurt me, because that's never going to feel safe enough, in my opinion. So now, what did I say here? If you're the betrayer, then you need to let your actions and time heal the wounds. That means that it is going to require energy again. You are going to have a great day where you think things are all good, and then something triggers something you didn't see coming. That it's not like that's what you get, but it's kind of a little bit like that's what happens, because humans will human, and hurt that, like, when you lose that trust and that idea you had of someone in your mind, it doesn't mean that what you rebuild can't be exceptional, but it does mean that it's going to be a tougher foundation to work on. There's a lot of repairs, so it's perfectly okay too to make the decision to say, I cannot grant you that patience and that acceptance and make those amends. I can't stick out through that, and that's okay too. None of it's good. And now you might be saying, well, how does this factor into sex? Well, if you're stopping yourself from running down this path of thought process, no wonder you don't want to have sex or you don't feel connected to your partner intimately. There's still the elephant in the room if you haven't gone down this path already of having these thoughts and these talks, you know? So before we get into solutions, let me read this chat. I dated my last partner for 4 years. He cheated on me literally 6 months in, and I stayed, but it constantly ate at me for years. I don't think I ever felt fully safe again. That I can relate to, and it really rattles you to your core. So then when I got with my husband, I was so scared and insecure because I was constantly terrified of just being betrayed again. And this is where I've talked about this a few times. This is where that fear of like you think you meet a safe partner who makes you feel good and cares about you and is so kind to you, and you think that you're going to feel really safe and cared for. And then it feels like a nightmare. Like it feels arguably less safe. You feel like almost like you're a burden or you're holding them back by being in their life. Because like you start finding ways to make it harder, and it just feels like something's not safe, even though there is every example of what would be safe for you to go on. That's because the trauma of having everything shaken and not knowing what to trust or what to count on doesn't go away just because you have a wonderful partner. That's what the processing of all of this, that's why it's so important, so that it doesn't become the standard, and it's vastly unsexy to deal with this stuff, but it doesn't mean that it can't make things better when you do, or that it shouldn't get worked through. Then when I got with my husband, I read that already, sorry. And it's especially hard because you're even more afraid of getting betrayed, because you're like, okay, I could maybe handle that guy with the red flags coming a mile away betrayed me, but this person, please don't let me be fooled by this wonderful seeming human. I will not have faith in humanity ever again. So it's like the better they are, the more weight there is to that. There was a point with my husband where I felt gross having sex with him, even to this day that gives me the ick thinking about it. After betrayal, it's like I wanted them more, but I was disgusted. I turned into the shell of a human, fighting all the time and living in the constant state of anxiety, but just wanting that love so badly. Absolutely, I've been there. I've technically cheated too, but it was always after feeling betrayed. It's like it's like a form of self-harm almost, to continue hurting yourself, putting yourself in that situation because you think that what you want is that relief and that feeling of control and being, with sex, being wanted or having something familiar, connected, exclusive, but then when all is said and done, it's not that. And then shame, and it is, to a degree, the connections we continue with people becomes a little bit of self-harm or self-fulfilling prophecy, where we act out the thing we're doomed to become, even if we say that's not what we want. All trauma. We're all good people with trauma. Making an effort to not make that trauma other people's reason they can't trust you. That's the key. That's the key. That's the thing we're responsible for, not the trauma itself, what we do with it. So, and then it's the other side of that too, being betrayed by someone and trying to feel better by sleeping with someone new, and almost feeling like you're using someone or you're lying to someone, and how it always made me want to call the person who betrayed me. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then you get to a good place and you look back and you're like, what the hell? But again, trauma. We nobody hurts us better than us, right? You know? It's kind of like our bodies. Like, no one's gonna kick my ass more than I kick my own ass, all right? But um what's important is, how do we try to fix this? How do we try to build on this and get out of this, out of these three situations, right? Having unsexy sex because we are trying to conceive and it's become, utilitarian and riddled with emotion. How do we have sexy sex when we've experienced loss and we're at different points of grieving, maybe, or not talking about it? And then how do you have sexy sex when you've been betrayed? So, obviously, there is no abracadabra, but here are some things that hopefully can help. Okay. How did I write this? All right. Video 1, we talked about communication. Video 2, sadly, not recorded, we talked about boundaries. And now 3, this is going to be putting effort into building intimacy and connectedness. Okay. So you might hear this, what I'm about to tell you guys, and some of you, especially some of my my couples that we talk a lot about the dynamic and stuff, you might hear it and be like, yeah, we got that already. But the goal is to do this for your sex life, which might be a little bit different. Okay. So first of all, prioritize having fun. I know that sounds really annoying if you're in a situation where it's difficult to do that. You can't, financially, time-wise, kids, whatever it is. I am not saying that you should just know how to do that, no problem. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it wouldn't take some finagling, finessing, strategizing. But what I'm saying is it deserves the priority and strategizing. It deserves a little bit of a non-ideal, given that what's not ideal in the first place is that you can't continue to just have fun. So if you already can't have fun and that's not ideal, push the non-ideal a little further and maybe have some fun. And everybody benefits when mom and dad are more fun, when parents are more fun. So, okay, that's the first thing, is have friggin' fun again. You really don't understand, like, the connection you form with someone. I'm not saying this for the toxic partners out there. If you know your partner's toxic, I cannot help you with this fun crap. But I mean, it'll be a good day, hopefully, maybe. But this is for the couples that are like, your hearts are gutted because you're trying to figure this out together, really put in your work here, right? Prioritize fun. What did you used to do together that was fun? Go try it again. Go drive somewhere. Go sit somewhere. It doesn't even have to be costing anything. Go for a walk after dinner together, but like, go take that time where you're excited to be in each other's presence. When's the last time that happened? Again, not everybody. Some of you might feel excited to be in your partner's presence every single day, and it's a two-way street. So I'm not saying you're at fault, but if it hasn't been a priority, even if it feels like it can't be, maybe sit down and really strategize and see that it can't be if you put both your heads at it. Okay. Specifically, spend time touching and having non-sexual intimacy. I know it sounds so cringy. Was that movie Knocked Up, where they talked about like, you can have outer course. Oh my God. I'm putting that on after this. But like, cuddle, massage, have a shower, like, go shower together. You don't have to have sex when you shower together. You could just, Nick and I mean, jigs up. We have a shower built for 2 people to have like a shower at the same time, and it's our guest bathroom. Like, we don't go in there and have wild sex in there. Like, we literally just enjoy showering together. We don't have kids that that's probably gonna go out the window when we have kids at first, but for now, why not? The goal is to talk about it and make it known that it is non-sexual, intimate touch time. And you might be like, what a drag. That doesn't mean it has to take away from your sexual touch time. It just means in addition to. Why turn that down? So I'm saying include and also establish that it is just for connectivity, like, connectedness. It's just for physical touch. It's not meant to be for sexual whatever. Now, if the 2 of you are dying to let it go that way, no, none Michelle isn't there like with the ruler, like, don't you dare, like, go for it, enjoy, but don't go into it with that intention. Like, make it known, especially like if you don't have a lot of time for that to happen or whatever. It's okay. We can still like cuddle a little, that's okay too. So it's okay to be romantic. It's okay to realize that at this point in your life, maybe you do want that more than you used to. And if you feel uncomfortable about making that known because you don't want your partner to feel criticized or not enough, or like you've never been like that, so you're worried about it being kind of awkward. Uh, if you're prepared to get through the guaranteed awkwardness of neither of you knowing what the hell you're doing, it could potentially be great. But again, this goes back to the first video with communicating. If it's okay to be nervous about something new you're trying. It doesn't have to be just with sex stuff. It could be about romance type stuff. you know um if you feel needy asking for that, text me, because there is a way. And if you feel needy asking for that, text me, because we should talk about why you feel needy wanting that. you know but tell them what it is that you want to do, what you want from them. Do it for them and say, I would love if you did this for me at some point. Like, it's okay to make it known that there are some things you can both add to make your existence here a little bit sexier and easier, and nobody loses from doing this. The goal is everybody's enjoying themselves while this is happening, right? So when I've tried to explain non-sexual intimacy to my husband, he just looks so confused. There's that awkwardness I'm talking about. I'm craving feeling safe and wanted and seen without the pressure of sex, if that makes sense. That's why I'm saying, like, if you were both scheduling in or putting in, it might have to be scheduled at first until you get into the routine of it. And everybody is well aware of what each other likes. It might have to be kind of unsexy and it being like, do this, and then having to tolerate the awkwardness. But once you get used to it and you go into it knowing that you're both going to be a little bit awkward in the beginning, but that the goal is to make each other feel good. And then it starts happening because you're feeling great and you're feeling connected and safe, and just like the physical touch of it, right? It doesn't impede your sex life, it just adds to it. Sex kind of follows more as a result, not because it's anticipated and maybe not at that particular time, but overall feeling that extra layer of connection where you don't have to have sex every time the two of you touch each other. Like, that builds, that only makes you kind of want to touch each other more in that way when it comes down to that and you're in that mood. It feels like it wouldn't, like, it feels like, why do that? I'm just going to turn them on and cause this thing. But like, control your boner, going into it. If you really just want it to be non-intimate, like, be like, we'll have sex a different time, but like this time I want it in addition to, like, outside of that. I think it's okay to voice that. And anything can be voiced if you make it a joke. So laugh as you're saying it. Oh man, I'm out of water and my throat is so dry. So let me get through these and then I'll try to be as thorough through this chat as I can before my voice kicks out. Betrayal is the hardest with this one. So if you are like, how do you let that wall down that you allow somebody to do what, like, to see you vulnerable like that again? How do you spend that time having that fun or that sexual intimacy time with them when you're feeling betrayed by them as well? That's the hardest one, but make a plan. This one's here. This is even more important to talk about what you want in this area. In this case, you make a plan to return the favor to one another, doing what you like at different times, right? Keep it fair. Let it be scheduled and a little bit utilitarian at first until that comfort level and that routine is established and you see it feels good and it doesn't change the dynamic. He's not, they're not going to forget not to cheat on you again because you were nice to them that day, like, I get it, and let it build from there. As it becomes safer, it'll become more frequent, but it's okay to take those baby steps. That's the reason CCA is built on baby steps, not just with our food stuff and health stuff, everything. Any change you make is less overwhelming when you break it down into baby steps. So, start slow, and if the trust can build, then this will build. I'm such a touchy person and my husband is the opposite, and I feel bad or pushy if I want to cuddle or just make out because it's not his thing. I can relate to this. I am not a makeout person. at all. I mean, it's just I do it because I know Nick really likes to make out, but like he also knows that I really don't like it. So if it was an excessive amount, like he would probably be like what are you doing? Like you tell I'm not into it, you know? So having that compromise, like we've talked about that, I'm sure as you have as well. It's just not our thing, you know. But having that plan where it's that give and take, that little bit, like a little bit here, a little bit there. I do this, you do this. It's you know, if you had a hard line problem against it, like if at any point I hated it and didn't want to do it, that would be my boundary and that would be what would be respected. So it is completely a consensual thing for me to be like, I really don't hate it that much. It just does nothing for me. And I get so bored and overwhelmed by it that it's just not my thing. So, you know, I throw it to him a little bit there. But when it comes to like besides the making out, right? Like if he doesn't like cuddling, right? What is the thing that he doesn't like about cuddling the most? Try to look at these things for like info because that's how you can make those little compromises. But if you were to ask him, what do you dislike about cuddling the most? What do you think he would potentially respond? And this is good because at this part of my notes I wrote, if you tried these or not, tell me specifically the differences of what's going on in your situation and let's chat it out. But he gets overstimulated really, really easily. Okay, and how do you like to cuddle? Like what is your preferred way to cuddle? I love cuddling. I will say that. I'm not a touchy person, but I do like cuddling like at night when we're falling asleep. Then leave me alone, let me roll over where I'm comfy. But um like laying on top of him, I'm such a sensory craver. Okay. So it might be a little bit of claustrophobia that because you don't have to be claustrophobic, like, oh my God, I can't be in an elevator. You could be claustrophobic to the sensory in a sensory manner. Like I would bet that he doesn't really like tight things or turtlenecks, or you're not going to catch him dead in a turtleneck, right? Um, so how would I do this? When do you typically like to cuddle? Is it at like you're an at night in bed kind of cuddler, or is it like I've had a like today's crazy, let's go lay down kind of cuddler? Like even my friends and I are always on top of each other. Okay. Our physical touch is your love language, right? Okay, so watching a TV or moving together. So you like to be really on top of each other. So one thing I would do is they have like sensory kind of like foot blankets. It's like the bottom half of those it looks like a sleeping bag almost, like a book sock for your legs. So if those things, I know it sounds weird, but the compression of it gives you that like security feeling. And then if you try that, maybe you can try laying your legs over his as you're both sitting up. If you have your backs separately, it might eliminate this feeling of something being so close that it becomes really panic inducing. If this area right here was more cleared of direct space, but you still felt like you were touching, you still felt the compression. I mean, you can even like put your top half like on his lower half or whatever as you're in your little book sock thing. But have it, I think that potentially could help. And it might also be like an overheating kind of thing too, combined with the claustrophobia, where the anxiety of like, I don't want to have to tell you, get the hell off of me, makes it so that he doesn't really love cuddling all that much. But there are little ways to make it satisfying to the both of you. Does that sound like something that you feel like could potentially help? Something kind of compression, like a sensory compression kind of item. I can help you look for them. I don't even know what the hell they're called, but I've seen them. You could probably just make them cheap too, honestly, from like Joanne Fabric or something. But trying that and then kind of alternating to find a way to have physical touch, like touching on each other, right? But in a way that doesn't cause that claustrophobic feeling, but still gives you the satisfaction of that closeness. I've been wanting a weighted blanket or something, but that sounds great. The good thing about the book sock type of thing is that it, because I love weighted blankets, but they get so hot, I find. And it's like a big, I don't know, it's like a big commitment to chill on your living room sofa with them, I feel like. The book sock things are very lightweight. So even with the warm weather coming too, you're still able to use them, which are awesome. So tell me if that helps you. If you need any other, if you have any other questions or that doesn't work, text me. I'm sure there's more variations. But yeah, there's always little tiny things that go into how we respond, especially if it's a sensory thing. Okay, so any other questions? Any other specific examples that do not apply to this, but kind of have to do with this topic where I could give more clarity or more of an explanation on how it applies? And Katie, did that help? Did that help before? I hope that it was thorough enough. You just kind of get through the moment of like, what the hell do you mean? And just say what the hell you mean, what you want, and acknowledge that it might be a little bit weird because it's different, but you need more of it. And I mean in literally the put your hand here kind of way. So there's no guessing. There might be, subtle reasons why that might not be what you want it to be either, which we can definitely text about more specifically. I always love these messages because I just try to really talk about whatever it is that I cannot find a whole lot talked about, because it's if I'm, especially the stuff I'm hearing from my clients, where I'm hearing it from you guys, I can relate to some of it, and I can't find anything online from other people that have ever been in the same boat. So it's always my goal to try and deliver those kinds of talks. But it's also, those types of subjects are so layered that it's also very difficult to make it suit all different types of situations around it. So again, if at any point in these Zooms there was a topic that you were excited to hear about and it didn't correlate to your situation, it might still. It just might be a matter of us talking it through privately for me to know the details and the background of the situation and how they would apply. So don't hesitate to reach out. Always my goal to help you guys feel heard and seen, because you are really so similar. all of us are. There's so much more to the story that I could write a novel, but it definitely helps open the conversation. Yeah. And if at the end of the day, the only, what you see is that what you're saying is relatable. Sometimes even that just helps, knowing like, okay, I'm not nitpicking. I'm not looking at this a certain way. Like, okay, yeah, this is tough. Like, this is something that needs to be processed, sometimes even that validation kind of helps too. So I am going to go stuff my face and then rest. But I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope it at least creates new conversations for us or for you and your coach. If you don't know this already, if you do only work with a coach, please also know my inbox is always open. I love hearing from my clients who speak regularly with their coaches. And yeah, just enjoy the rest of your week and let me know if you need anything. All right. Bye. And yay, this one's recorded. Woo.